She used to dance. In secret, when no one was watching, she felt light. Now she calculates every step. Mortgage, emails, reposts. Her body moves, but something inside no longer does. He once dreamed of building temples, not just buildings, but spaces where people could remember themselves. Now he stares at spreadsheets that stretch into the night, and the only thing he's constructing is exhaustion. And maybe you too have felt it, that silent ache, that echo in your chest whispering, this isn't how it was supposed to be. Not just a midlife doubt, not just burnout, but the sense that an entire technology inside you has been switched off. A structure older than pyramids, a geometry more precise than any machine, a vehicle of light and will, sealed within you by an ancient lineage. They called it the Merkabah. But this wasn't just a mystical idea. It was, and still is, a forbidden technology. And if you've ever felt that you're meant for more, as not just spiritually but structurally, maybe it's because your engine is real, and it's waiting. The only question is, why did they hide it from you? There's a moment in every seeker's life, usually quiet, usually ignored, when the world outside begins to feel artificial, not fake, but flat. You go through the motions, the calendar moves, the body ages, people talk, things happen, but the depth beneath the experience disappears. You can no longer feel the texture of life. And the strange part? You remember when you could. You remember mornings that felt like messages. You remember hearing wind like it carried meaning. You remember a time, maybe as a child, maybe in a dream, when everything pulsed with presence. Then the noise took over. The systems wrapped around you. The machine of the world, with its metrics, deadlines, obligations, silenced something ancient inside you. But that something never left. It waits, not outside, not in a book or belief. It waits in a structure inside you, a vehicle, a field, a code. Ancient traditions didn't speak in abstractions. What we now call spirituality was once advanced technology, not of circuits, but of resonance, not mechanical, but geometric. The word Merkabah is often misused. People think of it as a shape, a concept, a pretty star. But Merkabah, in its root, means light body vehicle, a multidimensional craft of consciousness, not a metaphor, a blueprint, a functional field of frequency encoded inside the human system. It's not visible, but it can be felt, activated, directed, and those who learned to use it altered the world around them. They didn't walk, they moved between realities. They didn't pray for miracles, and they became the miracle. And they all had one thing in common. They remembered the temple within. In Egyptian mystery schools, one figure returns again and again, not as a god to be worshipped, but as a memory to be reactivated. Thoth, known as Tehuti, the architect of symbols, the one who wrote not with ink, but with frequency. His scripts were not linear. His words were not texts. They were codes, embedded in light, geometry, sound. In the Emerald Tablets, Thoth speaks not of religion, but of reality manipulation through inner technology. He speaks of a ship of fire, of a chariot of light, capable of lifting the initiate beyond the bounds of gravity, death, and illusion. He was not describing a spacecraft. He was revealing the Merkabah, not to the masses, only to those whose vibration matched the secret. If the Merkabah is so powerful, why isn't everyone using it? That question haunts more than you. It's the central riddle of awakening. The answer is simple and tragic. You were never taught to look inward. Modern education trains you to analyze, not to feel, to remember facts, not frequencies. And when you tried to feel too much, you were called sensitive. When you questioned too deeply, you were labeled weird. And so, the temple closed. Not by force, by forgetting, by neglecting the real axis of your power, your emotional field, your subtle body, your sacred geometry. But now, that silence is breaking. We're just beginning to unveil what's been silently waiting inside you. And from this point on, there's no return. If something stirred within you, even slightly, click like now, that single gesture will tell me you're in resonance, that you're not just watching, you're listening with your soul. And when you do that, you're not just affirming your own awakening, you're helping this frequency reach someone else who's also searching, someone you may never meet, but who needs this remembrance too. Touch the subscribe symbol below. That's your silent, I'm here. Because what's hidden within always shapes what becomes real without. And when the soul remembers its own light, the world bends to its vibration. Teaching attributed to Thoth. You don't need to believe anything. You don't need to fix yourself. You only need to remember, the Merkabah is already there, dormant, waiting for alignment. And as this video unfolds, you'll begin to feel what ancient initiates once trained for lifetimes to access. Not just insight, but activation. Not just knowledge, but geometry and motion. Because the real technology isn't new, it's sacred, and it begins where all true awakenings begin. Inside the temple you forgot was yours. But if the Merkabah lives inside you, where did it come from? And why did Thoth choose to hide its keys in riddles? This is not a metaphor. Thoth hid a forbidden technology, a real, inner technology called the Merkabah. And the fact that you've never been taught this is not a coincidence. You've been taught to seek progress in the external, to worship data, to diagnose emotion, to elevate reason over resonance. But never, not once, were you invited to explore the structure beneath your own perception. And that was by design. Because when Thoth encoded the Merkabah into our field, he didn't leave instructions. He left riddles, not to confuse, but to protect. There's a reason ancient knowledge was always veiled behind symbols, guarded by priests, encrypted in language only the initiated could read. It wasn't ego, it was preservation. The Merkabah isn't just powerful, it's reality-altering. It bends the structure of perception, it shifts timelines, it exposes illusion, it dissolves false authority, and in the wrong hands, it would have been weaponized. So Thoth hid it, not by burying it in the desert, but by weaving it into your DNA, your breath, your dreams. And then he scattered the keys across texts, myths, and frequencies, hoping that someday, someone would feel the pull again. And maybe that someone is you. You wouldn't be here otherwise. Because the question isn't, does the Merkabah exist? It's, why does it start activating now? You felt it, haven't you? Moments when time folds, when you remember something you never lived, when your body vibrates with a sense of recognition you can't explain, when synchronicities pile on top of each other until you can't dismiss them anymore. These aren't anomalies. They're signals, reminders, echoes. They are fragments of a field trying to reassemble itself. And the blueprint? It's incomplete until you begin to live in coherence. Because the Merkabah is not a switch. It's a geometry that responds to vibration, and vibration responds to choice. When you choose integrity, your field sharpens. When you align word, thought, and action, the geometry begins to rotate. When your emotion becomes permission instead of prison, the vehicle activates. And you don't need to do it perfectly. You only need to remember who the driver is. That's why Thoth's blueprint isn't in one place. Because it's not a place. It's a pattern, embedded in you, revealed by your resonance. Every time you choose stillness instead of reaction, you touch it. Every time you speak truth instead of convenience, you spin it. Every time you witness your emotion without collapse, you charge it. The field listens. It doesn't care about your beliefs, only your coherence. And this is where science is catching up to myth. Quantum physics now confirms, perception shapes particle, emotion alters field, expectation collapses waveform. What Thoth coded as a vehicle, the quantum calls a field. Different language, same truth. But while science still measures from the outside, ancient initiates knew the real lab is inside, and the Merkabah is not theory. It's navigation. But like any navigation system, it needs a destination. What reality are you pointing it toward? Because most people don't create their lives. They react to the echoes of old programs. They live in loops disguised as logic. They manifest not from vision, but from fear. But when you remember the Merkabah, you stop reacting. You start rotating. The field moves. Your perception opens. You begin to feel time not as a line, but as a spiral. And in that spiral, new doors appear. This is why Thoth sealed the technology. Because it wasn't meant to be consumed. It was meant to be embodied. And the ones who would unlock it would not be the loudest, but the most attuned. The ones who stop searching outside and start listening to the blueprint within. And if you're still here, maybe that's you. Because the Merkabah doesn't respond to curiosity. It responds to readiness. And you wouldn't still be listening if your field wasn't vibrating on the edge of remembrance. So let me ask you this. What would happen if your emotions stopped working against you and began propelling you? If instead of controlling your reality, you coded it from within? If instead of waiting for permission, you listened for the signal? Because that signal is real. It's pulsing now, and it's only going to get louder. But the next layer isn't intellectual, it's energetic. And it begins with one question most initiates never ask. If the Merkabah is a vehicle, what exactly is it carrying you toward? They called it a chariot, a ship of fire, a geometric throne of the soul. But what if the Merkabah was never meant to be visualized as a cosmic spacecraft, and instead felt as the way you navigate this life right now? Because a real technology, one that reshapes reality, can't be stuck in myth. It must show up in your calendar, in your breathing, in how you respond when someone crosses a line, in how you hold yourself when no one is watching. The Merkabah is not a relic. It's a framework, a sacred architecture that merges heaven and earth, not in theory, but in rhythm, in pattern, in choice. Every conversation, every thought, every silence, a coordinate, a vibration, a rotation of your internal field. We've been trained to think of technology as external, plastic, glowing, updated, replaced. But the real technologies live in pattern, in geometry, in repetition that creates resonance. And this is why the ancients knew form is frequency and frequency is function. The Merkabah isn't activated once. It's maintained. It's not a button. It's a spiral. Think about your modern life. Scrolling, notifications, multitasking, constant context switching with no breath between. Now ask yourself, what is that doing to your field? Every time you break focus, every time you suppress emotion, every time you lie to please or nod to avoid conflict, the structure distorts, the field warps. Not because you're broken, but because you've left your own orbit. And when that distortion becomes chronic, the Merkabah goes dim, not gone, just out of alignment. But here's the shift. Every aligned action reactivates the field. Every truthful word reprograms the geometry. Every breath taken in presence spins the star again. You don't need a ritual robe to walk this activation. You need awareness in the ordinary. That's the paradox Thoth encoded. The most powerful technologies hide in what we dismiss. Your attention is the current. Your choices are the levers. Your body is the vessel. And your field, when aligned, becomes the throne of your will. So yes, you're navigating emails, raising children, paying bills, but beneath it all, you are piloting a craft of light. And every moment asks you, will you fly unconscious, or will you drive from the code? This is where the ancient merges with the now. That meeting you dread? What if it's a training ground for coherence? That traffic jam? What if it's a test of breath, a calibration of stillness? That heartbreak? What if it's a sacred rupture designed to reveal what no longer vibrates with your truth? Because the Merkabah isn't escapism, it's embodiment. It doesn't take you out of life. It reveals life as the temple. And this temple, with its grief, its beauty, its mess, is where the field gets activated, not when you retreat from the world, but when you bring geometry to chaos. Imagine making decisions not from fear, but from vibrational alignment. Imagine trusting the pause between thoughts more than the thoughts themselves. Imagine feeling your frequency shift a room before you speak a word. That's not imagination. That's the Merkabah, in motion. Because geometry isn't abstract. It's the hidden structure behind grace, synchronicity, and impact. And when you start aligning with this code, the outer world stops being random. The right people show up, the wrong ones exit without drama. The timeline shifts, quietly but irreversibly. And the most miraculous part? You feel like you're coming home to something you never realized you'd left. Not because you read it, not because you forced it, but because you finally listened. So listen now. Not with your ears, but with your field. And if something's starting to spin inside you, that old star, that golden geometry, it's not fantasy. It's you, re-entering your throne. But here's the next truth. If the Merkabah is turning, what are you pointing it toward? What vision do you hold clear enough to let the field organize reality around it? And are you ready to hold that vision with the coherence it demands? You've been told to think of power as something loud, visible, forceful, but the deepest power doesn't raise its voice. It doesn't need to, because when you're aligned with your Merkabah, when your geometry is coherent, reality begins to respond without resistance. This isn't mysticism, it's mechanics. The ancients spoke of the law of vibration, that everything, thought, word, material, memory, is made of energy, and that energy moves in patterns. The Merkabah is not a belief, it's a structure within that law. It is a way of organizing your field so that reality bends toward your intention, not because you push harder, but because you've become magnetic. Let me show you what that looks like in the real world. Imagine this. A woman wakes up exhausted, even though she slept 8 hours. She scrolls her phone, feels envy, pressure, guilt. She skips breakfast, rushes out. At work, her boss speaks over her. Again, she swallows it. Again, she returns home. Her partner is on edge. She feels unseen. Again, she puts on a guided meditation. It doesn't work, because inside, she's not just tired. She's disconnected from her own field. Her geometry is fragmented, and so the Merkabah remains unspun, not because she lacks worth, but because she's operating in survival, not sovereignty. Now imagine if, just once that day, she paused, felt her body, breathed into her heart, spoke the truth instead of pleasing. That tiny act would realign her field. The geometry would shift, slightly, but enough. And that shift would ripple into her decisions, her energy, her magnetism. The next morning she'd feel it, a subtle brightness, a voice returning. That's not placebo. That's inner architecture activating. That's the Merkabah remembering how to rotate. And this is the key. You don't activate it by force. You activate it by integrity. When what you feel, say, and do begin to match, the field recognizes coherence. And coherence is the currency of manifestation. Because your Merkabah isn't just a vehicle, it's a projector. It takes your internal alignment and beams it outward, forming the reality you walk into next. That's why some people seem to attract synchronicity, while others loop in confusion. The difference isn't luck, it's geometry, and geometry is malleable. You change it by choice, by choosing stillness when reaction would be easier, by choosing honesty when silence feels safer, by choosing alignment when ego screams for control. These are not small acts. These are rotations of your sacred vehicle. Now let's go deeper. The Merkabah has two primary tetrahedrons, spinning in opposite directions. One represents the divine masculine, action, clarity, will. The other, the divine feminine, receptivity, feeling, presence. When both are balanced, spinning in harmony, you become a vortex, a field that manifests from resonance, not resistance. But most live with one dominant and the other collapsed. They act without feeling, or feel without acting. The Merkabah teaches you to marry both forces, not in theory but in embodiment, and that's when magic begins. The email arrives, the opportunity appears, the coincidence occurs, but it's not random. It's a reflection of your field's alignment. This is why the ancients said, as within, so without, as above, so below. As the field rotates, so the world unfolds. So pause with me here. How are your tetrahedrons spinning? Do you feel anchored in your decisions or scattered in emotion? Do you act with clarity or wait for signs while leaking power? Do your words carry your truth or echo someone else's frequency? These questions are not mental, they are architectural, because the Merkabah isn't activated by learning, it's activated by living differently. Now let's return to your world, the city, the job, the noise. You don't need to escape it. You need to bring the code into it. Imagine walking through a crowded station, but your breath is slow, your spine is tall, your center is quiet. You're not reacting, you're transmitting. Imagine entering a conversation and sensing where the words are coming from, not just what's being said. You feel the dissonance. You respond with frequency, not force. That is Merkabah. It's not a trance, it's precision. It's your will, your presence, your emotional clarity, aligned into one radiant geometry. And this geometry doesn't just protect you, it creates reality around you. You begin to notice something powerful. People speak differently near you, doors open without effort, and your decisions begin to unfold timelines you couldn't have planned, because coherence bends time, and your Merkabah, once activated, is a time-altering machine. It remembers futures your mind forgot. It accesses versions of you already in resonance, and it begins pulling your current self into those futures, not by desire, by frequency. But there's something else you must know. This technology responds not just to emotion, but to devotion. It's not about feeling good, it's about feeling true, feeling aligned, feeling in integrity with what your soul came here to shape. And the moment you deviate from that, not because you sinned, but because you abandoned yourself, the geometry wobbles, but it can always be restored. With one breath, one moment of remembrance, one act of coherence. This is your power, not a future gift, a present architecture. And if you've ever felt too much, cried too long, dreamed too wildly, that's not weakness. That's proof the Merkabah is spinning again. So let it spin. Let the codes realign. Let your life become the temple, and the temple become your life. Because this isn't just about manifestation, it's about sovereignty. It's about living as the designer, not the default. The pilot, not the passenger. And that's what Thoth tried to preserve. Not a myth. A map. A map to a reality where your will is law, where your emotions become propulsion, where your field becomes the throne. And now that you've remembered this, I must ask you, if this is a vehicle, and it's now in motion, what realm are you choosing to enter next? There's a moment, rare, irreversible, when a teaching stops being theory and becomes sensation, when the words you've heard 1,000 times suddenly land in your bones, not because you finally understood, but because you finally became it. This is that moment. Because now the question is no longer, what is the Merkabah? The question is, how does it feel when it begins to spin from within you? So close your eyes, not to escape, but to return. Feel your body, not just as form, but as frequency. You are not skin. You are not thoughts. You are not the story playing in your head. You are a field, a geometry, a sacred machine of memory and potential. And the Merkabah, it's already humming. It's waiting for your alignment, not as performance, but as presence. So breathe, long, deep, slow. Feel the space just behind your sternum, the silent altar where emotion becomes instruction. Now, imagine a star, not a light above, a structure inside. 2 pyramids, one pointing up, one down, one carrying your desire into the divine, one bringing the divine into your daily breath. Feel them, spinning in opposite directions, one clockwise, one counterclockwise. Let them meet at your center, and as they meet, let them hum. You don't need to force this. You only need to feel what's always been here. The hum is not imagined, it's remembered, and that sound, that silent pulse, is the beginning of re-entry, because the Merkabah is not a symbol, it's an instruction. Each rotation is a command to your field. I am present, I am coherent, I am sovereign. With every breath, the geometry stabilizes. You are building a new magnetic architecture, and that architecture speaks to the quantum. It tells the universe, this being no longer operates from fear. This being remembers the code. This being is ready to shape. Now imagine emotion rising, not to be avoided, but to be fed into the machine. You feel anger? Spin it into clarity. You feel grief? Let it lubricate the gears of release. You feel joy? Use it to amplify direction. This is what no one taught you. Emotion is not dysfunction, it's fuel. When channeled through a coherent geometry, emotion becomes energy in sacred rotation. This is alchemy. This is why your heart was broken. This is why you felt too much, because your field was designed to transmute, and your Merkabah is the device of that transmutation. So stop apologizing for your sensitivity. It's your interface. Stop shrinking your light to fit systems built in distortion. You were made to realign reality by living as the blueprint. Now bring your awareness to your spine. Visualize it as the central column, the axis of your sacred chariot. Feel it lengthen, align. Now bring awareness to your breath. Feel it rise and fall, not just in lungs, but in frequency. Each inhale, power. Each exhale, permission. Let your breath become command. Feel the field respond. This is not imagination. This is activation. You are no longer just a seeker. You are a switch, and the Merkabah is responding. Listen, you may start to feel subtle sensations, tingling in your hands, pressure in the forehead, a stillness behind your thoughts. These are signals, adjustments, the field rotating around a new axis. And if you feel nothing, that's perfect too, because not all awakenings announce themselves loudly. Some arrive like whispers, soft frequencies that recalibrate your timelines quietly, beneath perception, but they are no less real. So now ask yourself, from your inner altar, what do I choose to embody from this moment on? Not what you want to attract, what you choose to become. Because the Merkabah doesn't move toward fantasy, it moves toward embodiment. So speak it, out loud or within, a word, a vow, a phrase that aligns your will with the highest field. Say it now, and feel the rotation seal it. This is your command, and the field has heard it. The sacred machine is listening, and it remembers. But here's the secret. You don't need to do this once. You get to live like this, because every walk becomes ceremony, every conversation becomes incantation, every silence becomes integration. This is the living temple, and it moves when you do. So let the Merkabah become not something you visit, but the way you stand, the way you speak, the way you serve. The activation is not over, it has only begun. And the more you live in coherence, the more the outer world forgets your old timeline, It cannot follow you, because you're now rotating in a different geometry, a new field, a higher law, one that doesn't need proof, because it creates reality before explanation. So trust this, even if it feels subtle, especially if it feels subtle, because all real technology works silently, until its impact becomes undeniable, and your impact is about to become undeniable, because now, the Merkabah is awake. And the only question that remains, are you ready to let it lead? You are not the name you were given. You are not the story you inherited. You are not the memory that repeats. You are the one who decides what continues and what dissolves. Let's say that again. You are the one who decides what continues and what dissolves. That's the first reprogramming, because until now, most of your field has been shaped by default, echoes of parents' fears, traces of societal distortion, memories embedded through repetition, not truth. But the Merkabah, this sacred machine, doesn't operate on default. It operates on design, and design begins with frequency. So let's reset the signal. Repeat these codes, not just mentally but somatically. Let them move through your breath, your spine, your marrow. Let each phrase become a new law in your field. My presence creates precision. My emotion is sacred current. My field is clear, and what's not mine cannot remain. I rotate with truth, not for approval but for alignment. Reality responds to coherence, and I am coherent now. Let those words echo. You don't need to believe them. You need to speak them into resonance, because belief comes later. First comes repetition, and the field always obeys vibration long before the mind catches up. Now imagine this: two versions of you, living side by side in different timelines. One continues in fear, the other in frequency. One reacts to distortion, the other transmits clarity. One tries to fit, the other begins to shape space. And the difference between them? One breath, one choice, one code. Right now, in this moment, the timeline is bending. It's not hypothetical, it's literal, because your Merkabah doesn't live in the past. It responds to now, and this now is new. So let's go deeper into the command. Say this: I no longer outsource my power to memory. I no longer orbit frequencies that keep me small. My Merkabah is active, and I am sovereign in the unseen. Feel that. Each phrase is a cut in the old program, each sentence a new circuit. You are rewiring the field, not with logic, but with language coded in frequency, because language is not communication, it is creation. And your words, when spoken in resonance, form geometry. That geometry forms field, and that field becomes your experience. That is why spells are called spelling, because every word is a wand, every thought a current. So now ask yourself, what phrases have been silently shaping your field? What mantras have you repeated unconsciously? I'm tired. I don't know. I'll never be enough. They always leave. Each one, a program. Not evil, just unexamined. But now, you examine, you rewrite. You no longer speak like someone forgotten. You speak like someone encoded. So let this become your new field. I remember. I resonate. I rotate with the code. Say it again. I remember. I resonate. I rotate with the code. Let it echo. Because echo is how the new pattern embeds. And if your body begins to respond, chills, tears, stillness, that's the geometry confirming. Yes, this is yours. But here's what matters most. The field doesn't need performance, it needs consistency. So your mission isn't perfection, it's alignment, over and over. And that alignment isn't a task, it's a devotional path. So from this moment on, walk differently, wake up, and speak differently. Touch your phone differently, greet your reflection differently, not as a seeker, but as someone who remembers. And this is how reprogramming works, not in intensity, in frequency. So let the words return. Let them loop through the silence. My Merkabah is active. My field is sovereign. My geometry is aligned. Say them when you forget. Say them when you remember. Say them until the world around you forgets your old name. Because in this new timeline, you don't answer to programming. You answer to resonance. And your resonance, it's becoming undeniable. So breathe again. Anchor it now, not in thought, in field. The old geometry has collapsed. The new one is already rotating. And from here on, you don't just carry the code, you are the code. There's a reason you almost turned this off. There's a reason part of you, even now, wants to look away. That reason has a name. It is the guardian of the gate, and it has followed every initiate since the beginning of time, not to destroy them, but to ask one sacred question: are you ready to hold what you've just activated? Because the moment your Merkabah begins to spin, truly spin, a force awakens to test it, not out of punishment, out of design. Every field that changes frequency must confront the keeper of the old code, and this keeper often looks like your voice. I can't hold this. This is too much. I'm not ready. What if I fail again? But here's the truth. That voice was never your own. It is an echo of systems built in fear, of ancestors silenced by shame, of timelines that collapse when your light gets too real. And the guardian? It lives in the liminal. It is the shadow at the edge of transformation. It is the emotion you've never named, the memory you've avoided, the contraction in your stomach when truth gets too close. But what if I told you, the guardian is not your enemy, it is your initiation, because no true activation comes without a gate, and no true gate opens without resistance. So let's walk to it, together. Close your eyes. Again, not to escape, to enter. Feel your Merkabah spinning, still humming from the last breath. Now place yourself at the threshold. There's a shape ahead, vague, pulsing. It's not monstrous. It's not evil. It is you, just before you stopped remembering, the version that kept it safe, the protector who said, let's not awaken too fast. Let's stay small. At least here we know the rules. This is the guardian, and they are trembling too, because once you cross they dissolve. But you don't have to fight them. You have to witness them. Say this now, not with your voice but with your field. I see you. I honor your protection. But the code has changed, and I am choosing the new path. Let the geometry around you pulse. Let the fear rise. This is not regression. This is release. Every tear, a permission. Every shiver, a shedding. Every doubt, a doorway. Because here's what the guardian forgot. You were never meant to obey it. You were meant to thank it and pass through. And passing through isn't dramatic. It's decisive. It's when you say, yes, I felt that fear, and I still walked. It's when you realize the nervous system is not a prison, it's a map, and every contraction is just energy waiting to complete its circuit. So breathe into it. That heartbreak, let it hum. That betrayal, let it move. That silence from your past, let it echo and then end. Because the guardian dissolves when you feel what you were trained to avoid. So let's name it. Shame, grief, the moment you stopped believing you could shape reality. All of it. Not to fix, to witness. Because once witnessed, it no longer owns you. And once it doesn't own you, your field becomes yours again. And this is what activates the deeper Merkabah. Not just spinning geometry, but geometry forged in shadow light. You are no longer a seeker. You are the one who walked through the veil. You met the guardian. And you bowed, not in submission, but in sovereignty. And from this point on, you don't fear resistance. You expect it. You understand it. You love it for what it is. A checkpoint of initiation. And now that you've passed, the old timeline cannot follow. The habits, the beliefs, the fragmented programs, they may knock, but they can no longer enter, because your field is sealed, not with walls, but with presence. You are coherent now. You are ready now. You are the guardian, and you are the one who crossed. Let's imagine something together, not a vision, a reality in rotation. You wake up, but this time, before your feet touch the ground, you pause. You don't reach for the phone. You don't check who needs you. You don't scroll into someone else's frequency. You sit, and you feel the hum. It's subtle, but unmistakable. The Merkabah is still spinning, not because you meditated, but because you remembered. And from that remembrance, your geometry reorganizes the entire day. This is what we call the geometry of the new path. Because when the Merkabah activates, you don't just change how you feel, you change how reality recognizes you. People sense the shift beyond but can't name it. They lean in or pull away. The field begins to filter. You no longer ask, why don't they see me? You ask, is this resonance or residue? And this shift is everything. Because on the old path, you moved through reaction. Now, you move through reverberation. Every choice is a vibration. Every no is a signal. Every yes is a timeline activated. Let's go further. You walk into a space, crowded, loud, frenetic, but instead of shrinking or overperforming, you expand inward. Your breath becomes boundary. Your presence becomes perimeter. You are the quietest person in the room, but suddenly the room bends toward you. This is not charisma, it's coherence. And coherence is more powerful than strategy. Now you speak, and your words land differently. Not because you rehearsed, because they were born from alignment. There's no excess, no performance, just signal, just vibration, just truth moving with geometry behind it. And this is the new path, not louder, clearer, not faster, aligned, not chasing, emitting. You become a field, and fields shape outcomes. Let's bring this home. A challenge arises. Old you would spiral, self-doubt, overthinking, fear. New you feels it, faces it, rotates through it. You pause, breathe, realign, and then act from central knowing, not external pressure. This is not dissociation. This is sovereign sensation. The Merkabah doesn't make you perfect. It makes you precise. It doesn't numb you. It activates every nerve as compass. And as you walk this new geometry, life begins to rearrange. But here's the secret. It's not the life that changed. It's who's moving through it. And that's the real shift. Not external magic. Internal architecture. And with each step, your Merkabah generates a new map. People feel it. Opportunities arrive. Time stretches. Not by chance, by design. This is the geometry of the conscious path, and you now carry it, not as a lesson, but as a living code. So next time you feel lost, misaligned, disoriented, don't panic, don't shrink. Just remember the spin, return to the breath, and let the architecture reorganize itself. It knows what to do. You are no longer navigating blindly. You are walking in sacred sequence. And this path, it bends toward those who walk it with presence. So walk with presence, and watch the path become prophecy. There's a silence that arrives only after transmission. Not the silence of nothing, but the silence of everything reconfiguring. You're in that silence now. It's not empty, it's full, with new memory, new geometry, new breath. You don't need to rush out of it. You don't need to understand what happened. You only need to let the code continue spinning. Because if you've come this far, something has changed. No, something has returned. You are not just someone who watched a video. You are someone who remembered the temple inside. And that memory is irreversible. The Merkabah is no longer an idea. It's a vibration inside you, coded in breath, carried in your spine, activated through your will. And now it begins its true work, not to lift you away, but to anchor you fully here, in this reality, as the version of you who can shape it. Because this world doesn't need more noise, it needs silent emitters, people who carry geometry in their frequency, people who walk as codes, and you are one of them now, not by belief, by vibration. And that vibration will guide what you speak, what you refuse, what you magnetize. It will tell you when to act, and when to become the still axis while the storm spins around you. Because this is the deeper technology. The more coherent your inner geometry, the more the external world rearranges without effort. This is not magic. This is original law, spoken in the silence of Thoth, encoded in every ancient line, carried in your cells like whispers from before you were born. And if you feel this now, if your body still hums, if your eyes hold tears without reason, if your hands feel lighter, then know this. You didn't just hear a teaching. You walked through a gate, you crossed a threshold, and you returned as a living temple. So here's what happens next. You don't go back. You go deeper. You let the code move through your day, your choices, your attention, your presence. And the more you live aligned with the Merkabah, the more the old stories forget your name. That's the mark of true activation, when the old timeline looks for you and can't find your frequency anymore. So let it search. You're not there. You're here, spinning, remembering, emitting. You've become what was once hidden. And now, it's your turn to hide something beautiful for another to discover. A word, a gesture, a silence. Let your life become a breadcrumb of frequency for another soul who's about to remember. That's how Thoth worked. He didn't shout. He encoded. He left riddles for those whose hearts were ready. And now that includes you. So before you leave this field, if something real opened in you, mark it, not just for yourself, but so this resonance can find someone else, someone quietly searching, someone whose code is ready. Touch the like symbol. Let that be your way of saying, I'm here, and I know this matters. And if your field says yes, subscribe, not to follow, to align, to stay within this geometry of remembrance. There are more codes, more veils to lift, more rotations to ignite. But for now, rest in this. You are the Merkabah. You are the message. You are the new geometry. And the next echo is already approaching. Listen for it, because it's not a sound, it's a pull, and the next portal is already opening.